Let's just jump right in. You might be wondering, why exactly is the Quran an eternal text? Well, it's because it isn't just a static book of history. Not at all. It's actually a living topological map. It's literally a memory waiting to be recovered by you, the reader. So in this explainer, we're going to decode what we call the living chainmail of the universe. We'll uncover a framework that maps human existence as a closed loop, one that was deliberately designed to wake you up.
Okay, to really grasp this cosmic mystery, we have to look at a pretty profound paradox of power. Think about this. The king dies. The kingdom remains. The staff is hollowed out, and yet the throne is completely full. The universe actually operates on this exact strict polarity. Understanding the absolute difference between what's merely claimed by the ego and what truly is, well, that's the key to decoding this entire system.
So let's get into Section 1, the Dead King's Illusion. We begin with coordinate 3414, which marks the exact moment of King Solomon's death. Now here's the wild part. His body remained propped up by his staff, which kept the jinn working away in absolute ignorance. The whole structure continued to function seamlessly, totally as if the king were still alive. The insects eating the staff? They knew he was dead, but the kingdom didn't have a clue. The whole setup was, in reality, just a fading shadow.
And this perfectly illustrates what we call the D10 Dark. This is the internal realm. For context, think of coordinate 530, where the soul is at full evil, prompting a man to murder his own brother. The D10 Dark is that hidden illusion of power. It's the staff of trial. It's basically the internal ego stubbornly thinking it owns the kingdom. But actually, it's just a hollow piece of wood, inevitably going to be eaten by insects.
When we map out this timeline, it reveals a system literally running on empty. Like a capacitive discharge, the circuit looks live, but it's really not. The jinn toil blindly because the magic of the ego makes the staff appear to stand firmly. But the truth is, the life force has already departed. Once the termite eats through that hollow staff, the entire illusion collapses. It definitively proves that power without divine alignment is just a fragile, temporary shell.
Moving right along to Section 2, the Eternal Throne.
So, if the staff is hollow and the king is dead, what actually remains once that illusion is cleared away? Well, what remains is the D10 Dark. This is the external realm, the throne of trial. It's the physical container of the earth itself. Unlike the staff, which is just an illusion of ownership, the throne never changes hands. As we see in Surah 110, it's the visible kingdom. It might look like a defeat to the ego, but it's actually the realm of ultimate victory. It's where the help comes, and the earth returns in pure exaltation, praising the owner. To understand how this balances out, look at coordinate 818. This represents the deepest point of compression, the buried girl. This is a severe rupture in the universal balance, right? So the topological map requires a vital response to this buried innocence. It demands a massive injection of mass into the Mizan, the universal scales, to restore the universe's absolute order and trigger that cycle of manifestation.
This leads us directly to Section 3, Staff versus Throne. Now we have to weigh these two polarities against each other. It's an absolute contrast. On one side, we have the staff of coordinate 3835. This is the king, the ruler, the total illusion of ownership that inevitably gets eaten by termites. And on the exact opposite side, we have the throne of 2555. This is the eternal container, the kingdom that always, unconditionally belongs to the creator.
So what happens when the D10 Dark consumes itself? The staff kingdom gets violently overturned, literally rained with stones, as we see in 1574. And this triggers what we call the D10 reboot. The earth accepts its burial only to be raised alive again. Think back to 1110.3. It doesn't arrogantly claim to rule the throne. It returns an absolute praise to the owner. The illusion shatters and the eternal container flawlessly resets itself.
All right, Section 4, the Forgotten Origin.
Now, this grand cosmic machinery isn't just happening out there in the void. It is happening directly and intimately to you. You are the execution node. You're the Mursalin, the traveler who was deliberately sent into this field of trial. Just like the sleepers who awakened in the cave at 1819, you woke up here, but you're carrying the deep amnesia of 3846. You've completely forgotten the coordinates of your own origin. And frankly, this is exactly why the book exists in the first place, to act as a memory recovery device, to trigger that dormant memory of home.
To actually find your way back, you have to navigate the 237 topology map. It's a three-part journey. Phase 2 is the initial split of fire and light. That's the trial. Then you hit Phase 3, which is the mandatory buffer. That's the book itself, and without it, everything just instantly collapses. Finally, there's Phase 7, the ultimate, perfected return. This seals the entire system so absolutely nothing is ever lost in the equation.
Think of this whole process like the biological seal of the universe. It strictly requires two functions to be running constantly. On one hand, you have mitosis, which preserves identity purely. It's like the fire miraculously becoming cool for Abraham at 2169, pure duplication. On the other hand, you have meiosis. This is the brutal exposure, like the staff being eaten at 3414. It crosses over to create variation and aggressively separate truth from illusion to produce that final, purified mass.
Which brings us to Section 5, gripping the book. So how do you survive this exposure? How do you stop your own fragile staff from rotting away? Well, here is your activation code, 1912. Oh yeah, take the book with strength. In this highly precise topological framework, this is not just some piece of ancient history. It's an immediate, urgent command directed right at you, the reader, to activate your memory with absolute strength before it's too late.
Because here's the secret. Gripping the book with real, tangible strength is the only thing that prevents the staff from being eaten. The king who holds the book tightly does not become hollow. Instead, that dead staff transforms into a living reality. The fire remains cool, your original nature, your fitra, mentioned in 3030, stays perfectly intact, and your kingdom becomes a vessel for truth instead of a deadly ego trap.
All of this builds out the ultimate law of conservation. See, the universe doesn't leak. Nothing is ever lost. The corrupt mass, like Pharaoh's ego in 1092, gets preserved as frozen mass, an eternal warning. But to perfectly balance the scale, you have Idris in 1957 elevated as purified mass. The mass and energy of the system are immaculately conserved within this continuous loop.
And finally, Section 6, return to the source. We are now arriving at the final stage of the Mobius loop, where all those scattered fragments are gathered back up. Track your own continuous motion through this system. You start by descending in the profound amnesia of 3846. Then you're heavily tested and stabilized in the intense fire of the split. You survive by gripping the solid buffer of the book, and eventually you return. You travel all the way back to your true origin as the ultimate servant. This 2-3-7 sequence guarantees the system remains a closed loop. The staff is eaten, but the throne remains. The returning slave, Ahmed, as defined in coordinate 6163, is actually the only valid king. You know why? Because he claims absolutely nothing. He owns nothing, asks everything of the Creator, and simply returns. By fully surrendering that hollow staff, he perfectly inherits the eternal reality of the throne. The chainmail is locked.
At this crucial point in your journey, you're no longer resisting. The heavy iron of the trial has completely softened, exactly like a mountain made soft. You have finally become the living, breathing execution node of this eternal loop. You are the exact, profound intersection where the wave of the soul perfectly meets the solid particle of the word.
This eternal memory, the Quran itself, is literally waiting right there for you to recover it. The staff is eaten. The throne remains. The slave returns. Allahu Akbar. So the only question left for you is this. When will you activate 1912 and finally take hold of the book with real strength?